Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Yona of the Dawn, chapter 224. When we last left our heroes, Hawk was questioned by Ka-Ji as to just who the fuck he is, and when Ra'an arrives, Ra'an outs him as a soldier of Koka, even if we find out that, Ra'an is very happy that he's alive. Also, Hawk is concerned for Ra'an's sake because he's aware that some of the wounds on Ra'an did not come from his fight with Hawk, and we learned via flashback that Chagol delivered them in retaliation for failing to capture Keen. But with Ka-Ji now aware that Hawk is an enemy soldier, he's the one who steps up to fight Hawk as he blames himself for Hawk being here in the first place. And as Hawk and Ka-Ji fight, there's a lot of, thematic and character work going on with Ka-Ji. Ka-Ji is best described as, very lawful. You know, there's this moment where Hawk berates him for being willing to, kill a child, kill a widow and child for saving someone's life and, stealing a bag of a plant. And Ka-Ji is very, that's the way things work. Without doing that, society crumbles. And he's this very sort of the rules must apply kind of guy. But he's also, there's a decency to him at his core. We see it in the way that he fights Hawk instead of giving it to Ra'an. And in the way he still seems to genuinely care for Maignan. And he genuinely believes that Soo-Won has captured Maignan against her own will, not knowing all of the drama that's going on there. But before we can really deal with that, a far more sinister force arrives, as Kura'u joins that part of the battlefield, throwing Zeno, bloodied and beaten up. And Kura'u sort of mocks Zeno, treats him as this, sideshow for Chagol, and Hawk is infuriated and just strikes Kura'u down. It's unclear if that's, a one-and-done thing for Kura'u, but Hawk is not here to play around right now. So with all that said, let's dive right on into chapter 224. We got our scan later page, you have the magazine cover of a bunch of male leads in, Hanato Yume is the magazine's name, as I recall. Hawk's in the center, but it really just seems to be a bunch of the male leads of the series in this magazine. But we pick up right where we left off, with Hawk standing over Kura'u. He attacked the inhuman South Kai general in one flash. This is the punishment for hurting his friend. Chapter 224, Surpassing the Limit. Also, Volume 38 will be out in a month, which is nice. We see the cover there. It's a nice counterpoint to Volume 37, which shows Hawk, and this one is just Yona. It's good. It's a good little image there. And everyone is just stunned. Back to the plot. With Hawk standing over Kura'u. General Kura'u is... And Ka-Ji thinks, dead. The man I hate the most in the world. In the blink of an eye. So yeah, seemingly Kura'u did just go down like that. Like a punk to Hawk's spear. But finally, that's the last bit of energy Hawk has left. He went all out there, and he really did not have all out in him, because he just falls over. Hande calls, Lord Hawk! And Ka-Ji berates himself. Idiot. This isn't the time to rejoice. If that quite serious an injury doesn't take his life now, he will be a huge threat later on. So he's, despite the sort of kernel of goodness in Ka-Ji, he is still above all else a South Kai general, and he's gonna take care of his enemy now. I'll take his head. And as he goes to, or no, this might be some random soldier who does that, because that doesn't look like Ka-Ji. He's wearing a more generic soldier outfit. But then Zeno stands between the soldier and Hawk, and I love this panel. The way it's framed, the way the camera angle is so low, giving Zeno this towering figure above Hawk. It's real good. But as the soldier's blade comes towards Zeno just tells Hawk, leave it to me, mister. Go to sleep. And the guy is just stunned at not being able to do anything to Zeno. Ugh. And Zeno tells him, after all my wounds have finally regenerated. Might be a weird translation thing there, but it sounds like he's saying, he's finally, the way that's written feels like he's saying that, he's finally healed now, but he doesn't look healed. There might just be, dried blood on his face. Old blood, the wound's healed up, but the blood remains, maybe? I don't know. Either way, Zeno, now that he's back to full health, just kicks the soldier down. And Ka-Ji, who this is his first time seeing this, is stunned. That guy, even though he was at death's door. No way. Can his body really regenerate? And we have this flashback to him, like a short little flash of a younger Ka-Ji with Maignan. It seems like last chapter, Kura'u mentioned that like Maignan took beatings for him. It looks like that's just happened. Because Maignan's a little bloodied up, and Ka-Ji is like weeping. Calm down, calm down. I'm going to save Lady Maignan. This time, I'm going to be the one to save her. Stay focused on the battle in front of you. And Ka-Ji calls, don't concern yourself with one person. Return to your ranks and charge towards the Koka army. So, Ka-Ji, I want to take a moment, though, before I talk about him as a tactician in this moment. Talk about that earlier panel. The first one on page 8. Because that whole, this time I'm going to be the one to save her, that's protagonist speak. That's how main characters talk. Ka-Ji sees himself as the hero here. And it feels like if he had like not backed, someone as much of a dick as Chagol, if he was not part of South Kai and such a firm believer of the law of whatever land he happens to be a part of, he could be one of the good guys here. But he's not, because he's backed the wrong side. But there is this sense of like things could have been different in the same way we see with Ra'an and maybe even Maignan and Hye-Tan. You have some generals, sure, like Chagol himself is not really a general, but you know what I mean. And Kura'u, who are just fucked up, who are evil as hell. But you also have these generals who are genuinely decent, even if they're on the enemy side. And the sort of thing that we saw with Soo-Won and Guntae and all of them, there was a core of decency in all of them. But I feel like it's been a while since I've read some of the other arcs involving like foreign armies. That's not, I don't think, like, I'm thinking back to Jing, and like, I don't remember. No, there were decent people on the other side of the Jing drama. I'm stupid. It's been so fucking long since I read that arc, though. That was like early pandemic, that arc for me. But my point is, there is this through line here of decency on both sides of the war, which is always a nice thing to see. Either way, as Ka-Ji makes the declaration, which I should actually take a moment to talk about the tacticianness of this moment. Because he's right, for all of his noting earlier that Hawk could be a grave threat. It's also not worth wasting all this time for one man. Maybe Hawk will heal, and there'll be a threat later, but we can deal with that later. We have to focus on, in Kaji's mind, we have to focus on routing Koka. And Zeno knows their change of plan. Crap. Me aside, they're gonna crush the mister underfoot. And yeah, they're coming. There's just like the sheer force of them thundering down the way. And someone calls, Zeno, get down! And we see kunai knives raining down on the enemy soldiers, and a familiar cloak lands in front of Zeno. Then we also see Shin-Ah, who is not the owner of that cloak, but, glaring at the enemy soldiers, and the sheer force of his gaze blinds them. The enemy troops fall down. Ka-Ji is seemingly relatively unaffected. Maybe he just wasn't looking at Shin-Ah, but he looked at his soldiers. What? And he turns back to Zeno, which is interesting, because that was definitely Jae-Ha's cloak. And he tells Zeno, I found you. And Zeno says, glad to see you're okay. And we see, yes, it is Zeno. Or it is Jae-Ha who is carrying, has Shin-Ah on his back. And Shin-Ah tells Zeno, look, I invented a technique so that I can still use my power when I become paralyzed. Only when I'm carried. And Jae-Ha is just uncomfortable being Shin-Ah's personal horse. And Zeno gives him isn't that nice? And Jae-Ha cuts him off. No, it's not. And then Jae-Ha, a bit more seriously turns to Zeno. Zeno then asks, what about the captives? And Jae-Ha tells him, General Guntae is on the move to rescue them with Tak and the others. So I entrusted it to them. And Zeno notes, so Tak and the others are safe too. So that right there is kind of the follow-up to the question about Guntae, that we sort of left to go deal with Hawk fighting Ka-Ji for a while. When Guntae was like, let me, I know you want to just go ahead and be unfeeling, the like cold calculator Soo-Won, but let me risk my life for my people, that Guntae did a while ago. We see that Guntae did end up doing that. Which is sort of, it fits with the whole arc that Soo-Won has had throughout this fight. Realizing that cold calculation doesn't really work. And also isn't really him at his deepest level. Anyway, they then note, oh no, I thought this was them seeing Hawk for the first time. But Hawk, basically unconscious, still says, saving people after surviving a flood. This is what you would expect from them. And Jae-Ha, not quite realizing who he's talking to, the pirates of Awa are not so weak that they would be struck down by some water. Well, I guess the same could be said about you. And only then, he just was speaking to Hawk like it was natural. Only then does he realize what exactly it means that he's talking to Hawk. As both him and Shin-Ah let out this, ah! And Hawk's face is just, like not understanding their shock. And Jae-Ha is so stunned, he drops Shin-Ah. And Hawk tells him, hey, you let Shin-Ah fall. But Jae-Ha is not noticing. You're here? You're alive? And then this is Zeno correcting. He's dying. But Jae-Ha just ignores that. Say it! Say that you're alive! And I love this fucking panel here of the upside down Shin-Ah just like glaring at Hawk in just utter disbelief. It is so good. It's such a good bit there. Like this arc has been so filled with tension and drama. And now this moment is so fucking funny. It's cut through all that with a knife. And Hawk tells them, I'm half alive. Shin-Ah, you're scary. But Shin-Ah just tells him, Hawk, yes, I wanted to find you sooner. Much, much sooner. It's frustrating. And the humor sort of dies away for this really tender moment between the two of them. And then Hawk tells him, a lot happened and I wasn't able to come back right away. I'm sorry. And Shin-Ah just sort of Jae-Ha sort of sighs and tells Hawk, I swear, excuse me, you really do shake things up. And Hawk asks him, where's the princess now? She's with the king and his advisor, to boost everyone's morale. And when Hawk is silent for a moment, Jae-Ha tells him, she cried a lot when you went missing. And Hawk, freezes there, at just, the weight of that statement. But then Jae-Ha cuts himself off. That's what I would say if I knew. You don't know? And Jae-Ha thinks, right, because she didn't cry in front of me. Though, of course, he's well aware that she did cry. Anyway, you should rest for now and let Zeno and me take care of things here, while Kija's running amok over there. And Hawk questions, White Snake? And Jae-Ha tells him, the enemy's main camp should fall any minute now. Okay, so maybe it's gonna wrap up a lot sooner than I kind of figured it would. We cut to Ka-Ji, who is just making a mess of the enemy camp. Just tearing through soldiers left and right, along with Judo, who is also with him. And the Kai soldiers all call, General Kuro! Where is General Kuro? He's not here either. Well, yeah, he's kind of dead right now. But the two of them are still just making their way through. And we see, I think this was Hye-Tan. Hye-Tan mentions Val, and Val, if I recall correctly, is who I thought Hye-Tan was, who was mentioned last chapter. But this is Hye-Tan, and Val is the one who went to go save Maignan. Hye-Tan thinks, if General Kurau's unit doesn't have command, the reinforcement can't move in. If only Val were here. And then, I think, maybe, so, I haven't quite noted throughout this chapter that, a lot of the Kai generals, I think they all had dashes in their name. And we've seen now, Kurau is now written without a dash, which changes the pronunciation a good deal. Maignan is also without a dash. And it looks like they changed the spelling of Hye-Tan's name for this, for Vinland's localization. Because now instead of being Hye-Tan, it's Hitan, which reads more like Hye-Tan than Hye-Tan. I don't really know. Either way, Taejun's brother, whose name is Kyoga, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's Kyoga. He appears and slashes his blade at Hye-Tan. Hye-Tan barely holds it on with his staff. General Hye-Tan, you fought well, but we, the Fire Tribe, will break up your ranks. And Hye-Tan stares down at Kyoga, compares the enemy's high morale. The soldiers of our army have close to no cohesion. His Highness Choggle most likely won't come to the battlefield either. Is that the difference in trust between ours and their generals? And yeah, I mean, it's been a while since we really checked in on the Koka generals as a cohesive unit, but like what we've really seen from Kai's generals is that they are very fractured. You know, like Ka-Ji in particular hates Kura'u, and like I doubt Ra'an and Val and Hye-Tan and Maignan have much love for him either. They don't seem like the cohesive unit that, you know, the Koka generals, or whatever their differences, can put aside those differences, and like we see them working together here. Anyway, Hye-Tan goes on, if this goes on, we'll be wiped out for nothing. And he's still like trying to hold Kyoga off, but then calls, send the order to retreat. To all the armed forces of South Kai, retreat! And that seems to kind of signal the end of the battle. Though, it's certainly A, not the end of the war, and B, I mean, very bad things for Hye-Tan. I doubt Chagol is going to forgive him, given what we already saw with Ra'an. And then we see Ka-Ji's name for the first time in this chapter, and he's also lost his hyphen. General Ka-Ji, General Hye-Tan sent the signal to retreat. And Ka-Ji looks back at that, and sort of in frustration thinks, is it really over? Please just let me accomplish something. And Ra'an tells him, General Ka-Ji, the order to retreat, but Ka-Ji cuts him off. I'll stay behind. And Ra'an approaches him, and tells him, if this is about Lady Maignan, General Val is on his way to rescue her. And Ka-Ji seems to accept that. Just telling Ra'an, understood. That we see again that, like, that Maignan is the figure that drives Ka-Ji's actions. We don't quite know everything about their history, but we know enough to know that, like, she was sort of a supporter of his, a friend of his who defended him, and she sort of become his reason for doing things, for lack of a better word. But with the battle with Kai in retreat, we have a bit of a moment to rest a bit as Zeno leans over Hawk. Mister, can you stand up? And then I think this is... Who calls Hawk Lord? I'm not sure any of the dragons... Do any of the dragons really call Hawk Lord? Because we have Lord Hawk here. I don't know. Your wounds are terrible. Quick, bring him to the medical team. I think this is Shin-Ah's line. Yona is waiting too. We see Shin-Ah's also just out of it as a result of his powers. Hawk, the battle is over. And with that, Hawk's eyes, like, widen. Realizing that he, like... Oh, wait, no, the problem here is I think Ka-Ji still has the Senjutsu. And if Kai is retreating, he can't get the Senjutsu for Soo-Won. Because he picks himself up by sheer force of will, runs to his horse, the dragons call Hawk, and Hawk jumps onto his horse and rides off. As one of the one of the Kai soldiers notes, General Ka-Ji, behind us. And they look back, and we see Hawk, like a visage of death himself, approaching Ka-Ji. And Ka-Ji is just, it's that man. He's looking right at me. And Hawk has, like, drawn his blade. He's coming directly towards me. And I can't move my dominant arm. Don't run away. Is that what you mean? Ka-Ji, in frustration, like, turns back. Damn it! And I guess he's gonna fight with his left arm. He, like, pulls his left arm out, his sword out with his left arm, and runs towards Hawk in one final desperate move. General Ka-Ji! But then we cut back to Yona and Soo-Won. South Kai withdrew! Victory for Koka Kingdom! Hooray for His Majesty! Hooray for His Majesty Soo-Won! Hooray for Princess Yona! But we see Soo-Won just, you know, he's hanging in there, but only by a thread. And Soo-Won thinks, no matter how unbearable the pain, I thought I could claim victory. But Hawk risked his life to protect Keen Province, and the tide of battle was turned by the power of the 4 dragons and Yona. I was saved by the things I discarded. So yeah, in the past, there was that one chapter a while ago, that specifically focused, there was a moment in one chapter, several chapters ago, that focused on Kai-Suk and Soo-Won both independently realizing how badly they fucked up. And like in their whole treatment of Yona from the very beginning. And while Kai-Suk was a very tactical thing, you know, the people are now like relying on Yona, and so maybe if we had like allied with her from the beginning, things might have like gone smoother for us. And now with Yona talking of leaving, like throwing her away could be very bad. For Soo-Won, it was a lot more emotional. It was a lot more, I genuinely love Hak and Yona, and I can't throw them away like that. But here, there's a bit more of a, it's an emotional thing here, the I was saved by the things I discarded line, but it's not quite as emotional, and it's a little bit more tied into, I was saved by what I gave up. And if I hadn't given up, I would have been stronger. It's a bit more logical than what we saw from him last time. Anyway, he gets off his horse, and Tae-woo comes up. Your Majesty, this way. I have tea prepared for you. Please hurry. And Soo-Won thinks to himself, the war is not over. I must drag this body along. And he's right. For all the victory in this one battle, as I was kind of implying, by focusing on Chogol and the remaining threats of Kai, things aren't finished yet. This is not the end. And if Soo-Won wants to sort of, as he's put it, subjugate South Kai before he dies, he's going to have to hang on for a good while longer. Anyway, Yona jumps off her horse and looks around. Where are Ka-Ji and the others? And then she sees something, and she grabs her bow and pulls an arrow. Soo-Won, get down! A South Kai soldier is coming at us! Oh, no. Hak won already. We're just sort of skipped through whatever fight with Ka-Ji he had. But we see Kaisuk looks on in shock as the horse approaches, and Yona readies to fire, and then her eyes widen. And she pulls down the bow. And a full page panel, and Hak jumps off the horse, battered, bloodied, but standing and returned to her. And as Kaisuk and Tae-woo look on in shock, he holds out the Senjutsu bag to Soo-Won. Even before he sees Yona, he does that for Soo-Won. Which, tying into last chapter's realization of the merits of Soo-Won's reign, is very important. And Hak tells him, here, the Senjutsu. And then he just falls. That's all he can say. At long last, his injuries have fully caught up to him. As everyone just stares in shock at Hak's return. As we end with him gripping the Senjutsu bag. The thing he searched for with his life on the line. A hope for he who was once a friend. And continues in issue 12, May 20th. Okay. I don't think Ka-Ji's dead. I'll start with that. I'll start with Ka-Ji, because I just feel like he's just now being built up as a character, and I can't imagine him being written off as he's being built up, as he's being, crafted. I mean, I guess you could say that Kura'u did that, that did happen to Kura'u, but Ka-Ji is a much more interesting character than Kura'u, and I think we can get a lot more weight out of him, so I can't imagine him dying there. Maybe he just knocked Ka-Ji out, or was look, all I wanted is the Senjutsu, and you're free to go, or something. I don't know. We don't quite know what exactly happened in that moment. And it feels telling to me that Kusanagi kept that secret. That she didn't show what happened when Hak and Ka-Ji had their fight. Just that Hak won and grabbed the Senjutsu. And so, there is that layer of mystery over what happened right then. Because until next chapter comes out in another month, we just can't really know. But anyway, beyond that little mystery, this chapter is just so good. There's so much good shit. Just sort of the continuing to blow tension, the shock of Kura'u's death. Ka-Ji sort of, regaining his head real quick. He has that moment of, fuck yeah, fuck Kura'u. Before he realizes we're at war and I can't really celebrate right now. Especially because he was my own general. And with that badass Zeno standing over Hak panel. And it's that sort of rising tension that's been going on for months now. That when the comedy comes, it's such a relief. It's so good. The whole Jae-Ha and Shin-Ah finally realizing where Hak is so funny. On page 13, the upside down Shin-Ah glaring at Hak. So good. So fucking good. But yeah, with that, the battle is going worse and worse for South Kai, and Hye-Tan realizes he's sort of out of options. They're not winning this fight, they make a retreat, and Chogol will definitely be mad at him for that. But for now, the battle is over. With a quick little, again, the mysterious encounter with Hak and Ka-Ji to get the Senjutsu, the battle is over. Hak finally returns to not Yona in the end. We don't get the him and Yona reunion quite yet. What we do get is him and Soo-Won. Which again, sure, that was his mission from the beginning, and saving Soo-Won with the Senjutsu was important to this alliance. But that feels very important. The fact that even before he sees Yona, coupled with last chapter's, Hawk's whole no child has got their fingers cut off by the law since Soo-Won has been king, that sort of realization that Soo-Won has done some good for the kingdom, coupled with this scene right here of him returning the Senjutsu, that's very important to how this whole trio will leave off. And I didn't notice this on my initial read-through, but this last page is that original trio. It's Soo-Won and Yona up top, and that bottom, it may just be Hawk's hand, but it is Hawk. Solidifying at the end of this chapter the importance of that original trio. That, the bonds that are slowly starting to heal after that betrayal that kickstarted this series. And I am so pumped to see where we go from that. Because, this is just such a good chapter. It's such a good chapter, such a good series. I fucking love this shit. And I don't know. I have no idea where we're going from here, but I know it's going to be fucking exciting. Especially because Val is still on his way to the capital, and he's under orders to burn it all down. I think, weren't those burn it all down orders even above rescuing Maignan? Rescue Maignan if you can, but if not, just kill everyone. So there's still so much shit about to go down. From there, will there even be a capital when the army returns? We just don't know. But for now, a moment of peace, a moment of rest as the day is finally saved. As the battle is finally over, and maybe Soo-Won will get to survive this whole thing. So with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, do whatever makes you happy, And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!